So it's constantly into play, and it is very much a bipartisan effort. You got bipartisan agreement and bipartisan opposition to this. But this is the kind of thing that, unfortunately is not there's no good elevator speech other than saying, we want to pass a bill that makes every vote count. But most people think every vote counts today. When we did polling pre the kind of Trump elections, pre-Gore and Hillary Clinton losing because of the Electoral College votes, most people had no idea how the Electoral College worked. Now there's maybe 25, 30% that do. And, normally the question you get is, well, what fraternities do they have in the Electoral College, right? I mean, it's almost that silly. So we're having that conversation, educating the general public. People are surprised that more people don't participate in the electoral process. They're surprised that whoever wins the most votes doesn't win. Now they understand there is something called the Electoral College, and somehow somebody who doesn't get the most votes can win. But most people still don't know why and what the impetus is and whether that's a good or a bad thing.
It's it naturally sort of devolves into a partisan instinct because the examples of one president winning, even though the other candidate had more votes, was Gore, Clinton,
absolutely,
and who ran against Trump.
Yeah, it was Gore and Clinton. I mean, that was exactly how it worked out. And what you had a situation is that, Republicans tend to knee-jerk against this because they think Al Gore and Hillary Clinton would be president. Democrats tend to knee-jerk for it because they think Al Gore and Hillary Clinton would be president. But as that favorite broadcaster back in my day, Paul Harvey used to say, then there's the rest of the story. And that's really the conversation we're having here is about the rest of the story. I mean, does it make sense that we're pandering to battleground states and giving them more attention than others? And think of the political engagement. If you happen to be from a battleground state and you're a governor or a state legislator, the odds are every presidential candidate is calling you, knows who you are. The influence that you have in setting public policy is pretty amazing. The first time I ran for RNC chairman, I actually had been backing the national popular vote, and the chairman from Ohio called me out at a private chairman's meeting, and he said, "This is a ridiculous idea, And I looked at him and I said, well, his name is Bob Bennett, and Bob was the longest serving chairman in the history of the Republican Party. And I asked him, I said, well, how many presidential candidates have ever been in your living room? And he's like, all of them, he's a big, rolly guy. And I said, well, how many of them know your children? He says, all of them. And I looked up and down the table to the other 50 state chairs sitting there, and I said, how many of you can say the same thing? I mean, how many of you have had a presidential candidate in your living room? And I said, it's not because Bob is smarter than any of us or is better than any of us. He just lives in the quintessential battleground state of Ohio. And so presidential candidates are pandering to him. And when the time comes to pick judges or make appointments to the cabinet or send over an ambassador, he has a lot more influence than the chairman and the rest of in the rest of the country. That's a classic example how you pervert politics in this political process.